Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'll tell you what, I'm going to start here. First of all, it is September 11th, 2025. I'm going to record this episode today, and then I'm going to air it today on all of the streams, all the, again, audio podcast sites, the whole thing. But I want to start here. The business of ritualized trauma is very real. And with everything that's happening around the world right now, and certainly again domestically, people should understand fully that ritualistic trauma is again one of the tools in the playbook of Zionist Jews. Period. Again, they created communism. They created everything that you are seeing, the chaos, the misdirection, all of it. And I'm going to break down Charlie Kirk's assassination here in just a second. Few comments probably about 9/11, and then, of course, other things that are happening all across the world, which are highly interesting. But the crux of this particular episode, again, is going to hover around communism, Zionism, and again, how Zionist Jews' God is, in fact, Satan. Again, Zionism is their religion, and Satanism is their religion. So people have to understand the callous nature in which these individuals, again, treat human life. Look at what has happened in Gaza. Look what happens, again, on 9/11, and it did happen on 9/11, not an accident. Again, before the Gregorian calendar, apparently, September 11th was really Jesus Christ's birthday. That it wasn't Christmas Day on December 25th. So, again, it was a calculated attack on innocent human life from those who have no regard for innocent human life. Again, this is a leap for the people who do not understand because they don't study, they don't listen, they live in echo chambers, and they don't read, and they don't, again, want to know about the horrors of the world that we live in. So, with that said, just kind of out front here, I want people, again, to fully understand, and you know this because you listen to this show, is that, again, communism, Zionism, and the Jewish lobbies certainly are the problem. And they are our enemy. They always have been. The Founding Fathers warned us about them. Endless quotations from the Founding Fathers about them. Endless quotations about being in league with foreign nations and foreign people, and how it cannot happen. Nicholas Machiavelli spoke about the exact same thing. This again is not new, but for people who do not have a firm grasp of real history, saying such a thing or believing such a thing would be difficult without any study behind it. And without actually, again, looking into it themselves on their own. And just, again, following the breadcrumbs, and you can see exactly what happens, the way that it happens, and why it happens the way that it happens. So, here's where I'll start regarding the assassination of Charlie Kirk. First of all, with agreements and disagreements aside, I'll say this, and I mean this respectfully. Charlie Kirk was waking up a great deal of people. Of that, there is no doubt about it. I mean, you have to start somewhere. If all that Charlie did was take an individual who was not politically motivated or even paying attention to politics, and they were face down in bong loads playing video games on a college campus, and he had the ability to pull them out of that and even mock that kind of behavior and say, hey, look, this is way more interesting. American politics, you might want to get interested in this. Again, if that's what he accomplished, which I know he accomplished that, then mission accomplished. That's a good thing. There are many of us out here, of course, who were watching the things that he would say and the way that he would treat people, and he would shut people down and a number of other things. And we would say, well, we know exactly why he's doing that because we know who cuts his checks. We know who controls him. And again, this is where I want to start, because this right here, I think, is very difficult for people to understand if they've, again, never studied it, and they don't understand that what you're watching in, of course, the media and the square idiot box called the television is not what you think it is. So I'll start by saying this. And again, this isn't new to the listeners of this show. You've heard me say this countless times. You do not find your way on a stage by accident. You are invited, you are groomed, you are recruited, you are given things that you believe are natural, or you are given things, again, that you believe you've earned because of hard work. And then before you know it, you end up agreeing with a great deal of people who seemingly have your back and seemingly support everything that you're doing. Again, you've heard me say personally, you'll never find me on a stage. I'll never be on a college campus debating anybody about this, that, or the other. I'm not interested in it. I don't like people. I'll just flat out tell you. I mean, I'm not a people person. It's exhausting. It's exhausting being around large groups of people, because it's not in my interest or anybody else's interest, really, to change the minds of endless individuals. That's up to the individual. You can positively influence people, of course, and you can drop little nuggets and little red pills and plant seeds. And that's exactly, again, what Charlie Kirk was doing. But specifically, again, regarding his career, which led up to, of course, the end of his life, I want people to understand that, again, Charlie Kirk seemingly came out of nowhere. Whenever it was, 2016, before 2016 is when Turning Point USA showed up. He again came out of a university setting. He was apparently politically affiliated at the university setting, and that's where the CIA and Mossad do their recruiting. University campuses, rather, are CIA Mossad playgrounds. They're everywhere. They are employed on these university campuses. They are employed all across the nation in endless other professions, including American K-12 education. They're within government. They're within all of these organizations, and you don't have to have many of them. You just have to have enough. So Charlie Kirk's political motivation and I would say political fertilizer, so to speak, is certainly CIA, Mossad, and Jewish. He was given money. He was given platforms. He was, again, right out of college, and then before you know it, he has an organization. And then that organization, again, talks with other people and communicates with endless other people in the media, which is the exact same communist, Jewish, Zionist intelligence agency apparatus. And then he's on Fox News, and he's a Fox News contributor. And he's having debates, and he's traveling the country. And then he's wearing the small hat, and he's touching the wall in Israel, and he's doing all of the things that a lot of these controlled individuals do. I'm not saying that everybody who finds their way to Fox News or touches the wall is controlled, but there's a pattern there. And that pattern, again, is part of the noticing that goes on among a great deal of us in the American populace, because we can see those patterns. So once Charlie was groomed and pulled out of the university setting and then again thrown into the Fox News limelight, excuse me, and then the campus-wide tours on stages indoors and all of that, that right there again was not an accident. He was being controlled. He was being groomed. Now here's where personal behavior comes into play as a recruiting tool. You've probably seen Charlie Kirk's behavior in the past. There's no shortage of confidence in him. There was certainly no shortage of hubris to some extent also. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful. Don't get me wrong. I'm simply saying that even in a moment like this, with his passing and his assassination, that you have individuals again honing in on a singular wavelength of thought of who he was and what he did. He did a great deal of things. But when he would be confronted about something that was factually accurate, he would always shut people down. He was famous for it. He would call people traitors. He would call people terrorists for telling him the truth about a specific issue. And it just happened to be something, again, that either he disagreed with, it was something that either he didn't want to know about, or a third option, which is he was told to not allow that kind of rhetoric or that kind of information to be debated. Which means, again, if somebody's telling you what to say or what not to say, and you're censoring yourself, well, then that's censorship. But again, I could play the audio on the show here, and it's all over YouTube, it's all over BitChute, it's all over Rumble, I mean, it's everywhere. Of, again, him both making excellent points as a speaker, and being very quick and statistically accurate. And then, the flip side of that coin is somebody asks him a question about 9/11, communism, Zionist Jews, you name it, and then he would buckle. Until, of course, as of late, certainly after October 7th of 2023. I would say that was when Charlie Kirk started to wake up a little bit. Because again, he's weighing what he's seeing with what's actually happening. And he questioned that false flag of October 7th in Israel immediately. I would even not say immediately, but it was slowly after that, because again, he basically lives on X, assuming that he's the one making all of his own X posts. But you can't live even in that environment, and certainly not back then, without getting a boatload of truth. Because you're going to. And then, of course, out of curiosity, you're going to read the comments sections of particular posts that you make. And if everybody, again, if you're getting ratioed and everybody is disagreeing with a particular point that you make, it might mean that the point that you've made is not accurate. So again, I'm kind of rambling. I feel like I am anyway, because I've got a lot to say here, but he was being controlled until, of course, in my opinion, Jesus was shining through him a little bit, and he was starting to, again, connect some dots. And he was starting to do it with a large platform. And on those large platforms, you're not allowed to connect dots. You're not allowed to arrive at Zionist Jews created communism. They are the problem. They foment war. Mossad's slogan is about deception and making war. It's their literal slogan. And that right there again, you can't bring things like that up on a large platform and not have its stereotypical end and its scripted end, when your whole being and career has been controlled by the very people that you are now calling out. So like I've said in the past, communism has one end and one end only, and it's death. For everybody who isn't a communist, but, and this is the kicker, for everybody who is a communist also. Communists kill their own all of the time for fun. They do it constantly. Jewish Zionists do the exact same thing. Vladimir Lenin was famous for killing his own people. He was famous for it. Joseph Stalin, same thing. He made people around him disappear. Hell, he killed Leon Trotsky. Not literally, but he had somebody kill Trotsky. Not his real last name. Neither was Stalin. That wasn't his real last name either. Way more Jewish than that. But again, their entire lives as communists is the cliche saying of, again, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. It is that. Even Joseph Stalin himself was assassinated. Notice how no one talks about that either. He was poisoned by Zionist Jews. The irony. Because this is how they operate. They take out their own. And when their own become a liability, or their own become useless to them, or they become risky and too much to handle, that's when they again end up doing exactly what they do. So I'm going to make this comment, is that, in my opinion, knowing how they operate and knowing what they do, Charlie Kirk was probably groomed very early by the Jewish lobby to ultimately have him killed. Because again, it's possible that they didn't see him waking up to a great deal of things and then speaking about what he was waking up about. And of course, like I said earlier, he was becoming more and more familiar with Jesus Christ, which is good. That's a fantastic thing. But communist Jews don't want that. They aren't interested in that. Because their God is Satan. So again, the entire assassination was not only well planned, I'd go so far as to say it was well planned many, many, many years ago. Because again, this is what they do. They plan things out that far out. And this, of course, being the anniversary of 9/11, the trade towers were built to bring them down. That's why they were erected in the first place. And the timing of them being erected in the year that they were erected was not an accident either. And then, of course, the timing of them coming down was not an accident either. It's all satanic. Because, again, that's how they plan things out. They think about this kind of stuff. So, I'm going to, again, hone in on his behavior just one more time here, is that it's not beyond a controlling Jewish lobby to, again, give an individual that they have funded, that they support, that they pat on the back and do everything else, to not give them what they are interested in. The whole image, his exposure, I mean, everything. Again, you don't find a stage like that as frequently as he found them, with nationwide tours, by accident. Someone, and people, plural, are moving him around. Again, taking trips to Israel, meeting Netanyahu, a number of things. And then, of course, a wife and kids. Because, again, that's an image thing. It bolsters his image. It gives him a little bit more attention, even though, again, his children's identity is by and large private, and same thing with his wife, by and large, although there's pictures of them on the internet now in abundance. But even that aspect of his life was relatively private. But, and again, I hate to mention this, because I'm not disparaging the departed. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to get people to see through the veil here and understand that these things, again, are scripted. And that, again, to use a recent, semi-recent example from whenever that was, a year ago or so, when Cat Williams was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, very famously, he was running through the entire entertainment industry with a wood chipper. I mean, he was openly telling everybody that what you see in the entertainment industry is not the way that it really is. You're seeing a production of a production. And it isn't any different with media figures either. You're watching, again, a production of a production. Some of these people are very honest. Some of these people, again, are not allowed to say particular things. And then, of course, if you say certain things, then, well, you either lose your job or you get killed. But it has to make one wonder, all the different things in Charlie's life and the things that were around him, was it natural or was it given to him? Because he was being used in a very satanic script. And like I said earlier, and I forgot the thought, my apologies, but he had a lot of hubris, which is why a lot of people on the right didn't like him. He was very full of himself. But when you're given a stage and money and you're already potentially that way behaviorally, then you're not going to be able to see nor recognize the illusion around you that has created who you are and what you're doing, and how that has a very horrific end to it. You've heard me say again that communism always, again, has the same ending: a person's head up against a brick wall and a bullet in it. That's true. And I think, unfortunately, everybody saw that with his assassination, because, again, when a communist is done with you and they're done wringing you dry and you again become a liability, that's what happens. Now, I want to read a particular post here with that aside, although it's not aside, it's in the same vein. There's a post here that was on Gab, which is interesting. And as you might expect, endless people are posting about this and have been, certainly from the start. Me personally, I just got on Gab and X, and I was just asking people to think about communism and how it works. And how this business of us being at war and in a war is not new. We've been at war since 1775, if not before then. We were at war before we were a formal country. And we're still fighting the same people to this day. Because it's the same things that keep occurring. People bring up the money lenders, people bring up the war starters, and someone gets killed. And then you socially manipulate people, and they get angry, they get frustrated, they buy more guns. People on the so-called other side scream gun control and 1,000 other things. But again, that's basically what I was just suggesting. Again, think about communism, think about who created communism, and when you see something like this, an assassination, it should be crystal clear as to who actually did this. So this was a so-called Wendy Milling on Gab. Again, no picture associated with it. It's just a well-written sort of summary as to, again, what we all witnessed and what we saw and who is ultimately responsible. They said the following, quote, "It seems quite obvious that Charlie Kirk was murdered by Zionist Jews in a clear state-sponsored act. It was a professional hit, not the kind of stunt pulled off by regular leftists, quote-unquote, or what have you. The shooter had knowledge of Charlie's schedule in advance, had access to the campus, knew the layout of the land, and which building to post. Had access to the roof of that building, had a high-grade weapon, and had the self-discipline and the skill to make a neck shot at 125 yards with a cold barrel, which is more accurate than even trained soldiers in advanced armies who can make torso shots at that distance after the barrel is warm. I believe the neck was the target, not the head or chest. The neck is expected to be as lethal as a headshot, but it still creates social suspense and anxiety of the will he live, quote-unquote, variety. A chest shot can have higher chances of survivability. Yet, a neck shot also avoids the disgust, some of which would get transferred onto the victim and thus make him less sympathetic. And that a headshot would generate by causing brains to be visibly splattered everywhere. In other words, a neck shot chaos maxes, quote-unquote. It's for effect, basically, because it's ritualistic trauma, because that's, again, that's how they operate. It goes on, it says, other lines of evidence that Israel was behind this are that Kash Patel released a person of interest, quote unquote, who isn't specified, but people saw the shooter in black on the roof of the Losi building. How can the FBI fail to apprehend him? Catching the individual hanging around on the roof as seen in at least one cell phone footage, would require elementary police skills. You are all aware that Kash Patel's girlfriend had Mossad links. She denies that, but she's surrounded by Mossad agents at Heritage, the Heritage Foundation. It says, and she is another middling talent being promoted in a country music career. Israeli Jews and close Zionist Jew colleagues control the entertainment celebrity pipeline of mediocre talents, people who can't really sing, play, or act well, but are promoted into fame to promote Israeli interests in return, like Kid Rock, they said. And then they said, then there is the fact, Disclosed TV, an Israeli associated outlet, was the first I saw to report the death on Telegram at 2:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Another suspicious aspect is that the shooter waited until Charlie talked about gun violence from gangs to shoot him. This is again part of the chaos maxing, emphasizing contradictions in an explicit Jewish meta-strategy for undermining Gentiles' beliefs in their own civilizations. Jewish philosopher Leo Strauss talked about this. It was the themes of his life's work, and it was passed down to his students, whom you know today as neocons. If police had any clue, they would detain the persons who asked Charlie the gun-related questions, prompting his answer, during which he was murdered by a weapon. They would go through their phones, get contacts, check bank transactions, with an eye for foreign money. The overarching motive for the assassination is false flagging, apparently to make whites get into a frenzy and start a civil war against Zionists' enemies, the left, after an agitprop campaign, I'm getting that wrong, over the assassination on social media. Zionists are under intense pressure right now, with Israel being intentionally isolated and militarily culminating. Domestically in the United States, they're losing power through Democrats winning special elections, Texas's gerrymandering plan being canceled by California Governor Newsom's response, and Mondani, the brown socialist poised to win the mayor race in the home city of U.S. Jewry, New York City. It says they really need white people to rise up and kill off their enemies before they lose it all. And they have been actively trying to spark a U.S. race war for a decade. The motive for their target choice seems obvious. Charlie betrayed his money masters, in their view, because he started talking about the role of Jews a few months ago. People in the dissident right remarked on the change, just like I did and like lots of people did, observing that it was a significant development because it meant Zionists are losing control of their own pawns. Charlie's Zionist sponsors tried to shut him into attacking only left-wing Jews, but the fact that he was willing to talk about Jews at all caused them to write him off. He didn't accept Jews and Jewish power unconditionally, so he would forever be a liability after that, requiring constant attention to ensure he redirected his attacks onto the left. They wrapped up and said, "What I saw in that video was horrendously evil and pointless. It was the kind of psychopathy we only see from Israel and fellow right-wing Zionist Jews in the diaspora, the total lack of value of living things. There really just isn't any other people who think that way. You might point to Russians, but even there, upon closer inspection, we see that the worst Russian, quote-unquote, acts are in fact done by Russian Jewry. Israel and Zionist Jews are satanic and must be destroyed for the sake of humanity," unquote. Again, they're not wrong. That's a very good breakdown of generally the entire thing. Now, I don't have any proof that Disclosed TV is Israeli-owned, because even they call out Israel from time to time and Netanyahu, and of course point out the hypocrisy of the whole thing. and a lot of the different comments that get made and a number of other things. But even so, if it's possible, then yeah, it's certainly possible. Let me just read a few other posts here. Again, a lot of these came from Gab, a couple came from X, but we know that a lot of people are commenting, and some people, very knowledgeable individuals, are being rather objective about the entire thing, as horrific as it is, because again, the objective mind would see the horror in it. It's the people who are not objective who are making just asinine comments about the entire thing. And of course, in stereotypical fashion, like moths to the flame, American school teachers, people in higher education, so to speak, academia, the medical industry, the entertainment industry, you name it, they're all coming out and mocking all of this. Literally mocking the assassination of someone. Here is a post from the slideshow at the slideshow on Gab. They said the following: people don't want me pointing out that Charlie Kirk was owned by Israel, but the quicker you understand that, the quicker you can get to the truth of why they took him out. He was starting to speak out. He openly brought on Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, who opposed Israel at his recent events. There were America First people booing Israel at those same events. Charlie Kirk was starting to notice, and that's why Israel took him out, unquote. Yeah. The entire outside venue, okay, just very quickly before I continue with some of these posts, and again, some of they're not even anomalies. It's a pattern. It's just noticing that there's a way that this always goes down because, again, as predictable as human beings are, events like this are relatively predictable. The outside venue debate thing was pretty much started by and created by Steven Crowder, by and large. I mean, yes, of course, there are endless examples of it in the past, with endless, political figures and other individuals speaking out publicly in public on a stage with a microphone in front of them. I fully get that, but the change my mind Steven Crowder debate thing, that really took off on college campuses because that was, again, something back in the day that a lot of people were paying attention to. And I remember I was watching them consistently. I watched a great deal of them when I was in graduate school. And I thought, well, this is interesting. But then you have to take into account the one phrase I've always brought up on the show, cumulative risk. This right here also is one of the things that a combination of a little bit of hubris and Zionist control and lobby control would cause an individual to not pay attention to cumulative risk. So, again, lots of people have posted, even Harrison Smith on InfoWars posted allegedly that someone close to Charlie Kirk heard from Charlie that he wouldn't be surprised if, again, Israel killed him or Zionists killed him for some of the things that he has said. So, again, if he voiced those opinions, then why would you attend an outside venue? Why would you put yourself in a position like that where no one is really there to protect you? Again, in moments like this too, you can tune into Fox News and you can watch what they do and what they say and how they operate, and you can again catch these patterns because there are glimpses of the truth in some of what these guests on Fox News say, or even some of these hosts. They had a cop on there again yesterday after the shooting had taken place, after he was pronounced dead, and which, again, given the shot and everything, I mean, he died instantly. There's no way that he was alive longer than a minute or so. But the simple fact, again, that the cop on television openly said, this is a security nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. You're in a tunnel. You're in an enclosed area by and large, even though you're outside. You're under a tent. You're in a chair behind a table. You have a microphone. Everybody can see you. And then you have rooftops, parking garages, windows, all facing you in your general direction. It's an absolute security nightmare. And then he actually said how many cops were there. Do you know how many police? I mean, the chief of police openly said it during their first press conference. They had 6 cops there. 6. There were thousands of students there, and you have 6 police officers. A vigilant mind and someone who understands cumulative risk would say, this is a bad idea. We don't need to be here. We don't need to do this anymore. In fact, that's even the bigger picture. We don't need to do this anymore. Now think of all of the people around Charlie Kirk, given all of these outside events that he's done, and theoretically, he's done way more than Steven Crowder ever did. I mean, Steven Crowder's is as irrelevant as anything these days, because even he, regarding Charlie Kirk's shooting, is all about the trannies. I mean, he's openly saying, well, there were things written on the gun and things written on the bullets. How would Steven Crowder know that? He wouldn't. But the tranny angle is all Steven Crowder has because he's controlled too. And this is, again, difficult for people to understand, that these individuals have talking points and mission goals and statements that they have to read and angles that they have to perpetuate. And is it because they're easily manipulated as individuals? Probably. But anybody with any security sense would look at those outside venues and say, this is stupid. Again, I'm recording this on 9/11. It's 11:33 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as I'm talking right now. Allegedly, Donald Trump is going to be at an outside Yankees game, or at a Yankees game in New York City today. Why? Why? What's the point? What are you going to accomplish? It's risky. It's a security risk. Again, cumulative risk. We are at war. This is a war. But you have to understand who the enemy really is. The enemy is so deep and deeply, I should say, embedded within our own country that the war is right here. And unfortunately, we have to fight the brainwash too. Because that's what, again, communist-zionist Jews do, is they brainwash people and they pacify them and they distract them, all on purpose, to get them from seeing the truth and who the real enemy is. You've heard me again bring it up before. That paper that's again on my website under the Government Documents tab, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It has to do with currency and energy as currency. Human energy is their currency. They feed off of it, just like the devil. People waste their time, the devil loves that. People get distracted with useless shit, the devil loves that. That's what these people love too, because they know exactly how to control individuals. But the entire venue, again, an absolute security risk. And then, of course, you have this post as well. This is from a Jackson Hinkle. They said the following. Let's see, at 6:22 p.m. on September 10th. Quote, he used to be an Israel loyalist. He feared Israel would kill him, quote unquote. He started mildly criticizing Israel. He said Epstein was Mossad. He let anti-Zionists speak at his events. Zionist media started attacking him. Someone shot his jugular 200 yards away, allegedly. 150, whatever it was. Netanyahu tweets within minutes. Patsy gets arrested and acts guilty, who happened to be Jewish. His name ends with a Zin, if I'm not mistaken. Let me get his name. He was the first old guy who was detained. Again, bald dude, glasses, blue shirt, George Zinn. Again, yelling, shoot me, and being loud and of course being detained. And then there's this angle too, before I get done reading his post there. But there's a Hebrew word called Sanim, if I'm saying that correctly, Sayanim. And it's Hebrew for helpers or assistants. And it says, Sanim are unpaid Jewish civilians who help Mossad out of a sense of devotion to Israel. They are recruited by Mossad's field agents to provide logistical support for Mossad operations. A Sayan running a rental agency, for instance, would help Mossad agents rent a car without the usual documentation. The usage of Sanim allows the Mossad to operate with a slim budget yet conduct vast operations worldwide. Sanim can have dual citizenships, but are often not Israeli citizens, unquote. Just a quick little definition of that term. And again, apparently, as this individual was detained, this is the recklessness of Kash Patel. He immediately says, we have a suspect in custody. And then he goes, sorry, we've let that person go. And then moments later, we have another suspect in custody. And then moments later, sorry, we've let that person go. You're the FBI director. Saying such a thing at such a moment is beyond careless. People lose their jobs for being that careless on social media about such a serious issue and even less serious issues. But as all of that was going on, allegedly, a private plane left the area and turned its radar off. So, again, why is a plane operating without a radar and flying undetected out of Utah Valley University, out of the airport, the regional airport there? Seems suspicious, no? Wrapping up Jackson Hinkle's post, he said, Patsy gets arrested and acts guilty. Assassin escapes without a trace. Netanyahu tweets a longer message. He wrapped up and said, something tells me they're not going to tell us the truth about who killed Charlie Kirk. Anybody with a brain knows who killed him. It was a communist-zionist Jew being paid by communist-zionist Jews, period. And yes, the CIA and Mossad work hand in hand also. That's why our enemy is right here. It's right in front of us. It's on our own land. Another person posted this, a not sure gnosis. If that's how you say that, it says, the fact that the shooter got away, quote unquote, while some old Jewish guy loudly made a scene in front of the police means it was Israel. And then again, the old guy, a Sanim, the shooter, Mossad, is what they said. And then they define what a Sanim is also. Same thing. It's a script. It's all designed, again, look over here, pay attention to this, watch this, don't pay attention to what really happened and why it really happened. It's just like 9/11. Same kind of thing. Trust us, we're the news, we say it happened this way, this is the way that it went down in XYZ. Now I want to make this point too. All of the individuals who have all of these platforms and all of the people, again, who had Charlie Kirk on their shows, when Charlie would criticize Israel and Netanyahu and Mossad and Epstein and all of it, when he would start to criticize them, you have to ask yourself right now, where are those people right now? Why are those individuals not criticizing the same people that Charlie Kirk was criticizing when Charlie was on their show? Why are those people not saying right now, this was probably a Mossad hit? It couldn't be more obvious. Are they not saying things to save their own neck? It's possible. But they know what he knew. And we know what they know. So, again, not saying it is highly suspicious of those individuals, like the Patrick Bet-Davids of the world and the Benny Johnsons of the world. I mean, the list is endless of these people. Where did these people come from? But at the same time, again, they don't spend a lot of time criticizing Mossad. They'll say it occasionally, but they hesitate or they stutter, or they'll have somebody on their show who will say it. That way it sort of absolves them of any wrongdoing, so they think. Here's the other thing too, with again Charlie Kirk's outlet and the platform that he was again given, and or was stolen by Steven Crowder or whatever, suggested by somebody. Hey, go on college campuses and have like-minded conversations with those that agree with you, but also have a Q&A, and then school these liberals on the way that things allegedly are, and all of these debates, quote unquote, and everything else. The simple fact that the platform existed to give average American youth or average American anybody a microphone in front of their face in a social media environment and a social media world that we live in, and that microphone that was in front of the general public who would speak to Charlie Kirk were coming up and educating him on the Talmud, 9/11, Zionist Jews, communism, the whole thing. The simple fact that, again, that was being recorded and on the record and getting out there and educating people, and even, again, showing Charlie to some extent to a great deal of people that there was a lot that he did not know and that he had a lot more to learn. Zionist, communist Jews can't have that either. I mean, they can't. So they had to shut it down, because shutting it down is what they do. When a person goes past their expiration date on their controlled time of them, again, being controlled by the Jewish lobby, then that's when their card gets pulled. It's happened throughout history. You can pick a person who's been assassinated. It's all generally the same exact method for the exact same reason. Lincoln was assassinated because Lincoln didn't like what was going to happen with the central banking system. So Freemasons, Jews, got a hold of John Wilkes Booth. Game over. The rest is history. James Garfield, same thing. He didn't like the central banking system. He didn't like what was about to happen. And then they removed him. They shot him and killed him. I mean, the list is endless. JFK, RFK, you can go down the list. It's everybody for the same reasons, done by the same people every single time. That's why the phrase and saying every single time exists. Again, if you pop this assassination and situations like it through the scientific method, and you run it through that process over and over and over again, you're going to consistently fill up the bucket of conclusions with real factual conclusions. You'll have to go back, reread, relook at information, reanalyze it, siphon it back through the scientific method, and with every time that you do that, reform new hypotheses, and then go back and again research and look up information, conduct experiments, XYZ. You're always going to add to that pile of logical conclusions, and then you can make an assessment of the conclusions. And the conclusion that you're going to arrive at is that your enemy are communist-zionist Jews. Period. That's exactly what this was. It was completely controlled and scripted, like I said earlier in this episode, probably to end just like this for him, which is unfortunate. And I know that somebody would even ask this question, and it's a logical question. Somebody might again say, well, if they didn't like what he was saying, and they didn't want the outdoor venues anymore and the Q&A sessions and everything else. I mean, again, Charlie Kirk very famously, and I've played the audio on the show, has openly called people who openly say that the USS Liberty was done by Israel and that boat was sunk and those American soldiers were killed by Israel and that it was intentional. He's shouted them down and told them it's a conspiracy theory and that he doesn't like Jew-hating conspiracy theorists. I mean, again, that was Charlie's rhetoric also, which is not factually accurate by any stretch of the imagination. But his platform and individuals, again, even asking the question, was a liability for the entire Jewish lobby, because they don't want people to know the truth. But they're losing control. It's slipping through their fingers on a day in and day out basis. But again, someone would ask this question. They would say, well, again, if they didn't like what he was saying, why would his controllers just kill him then? Why would they leave him out there and then kill him, instead of saying, hey, look, man, we love supporting your platform. We love Turning Point USA, of course. We helped you get this started. We don't really like all this finger pointing, and we don't like all of this stuff, and we would like you to tone down the college visits a little bit. Stick to your show on Real America's Voice, and just kind of stay there and just do that. But we're gonna step away from the college campus visits and the hostile debates that you have with people, and a number of other things. And let's face it, I mean, the debates that he had with people were hostile. Yes, sometimes they were calm, but they were also condescending. And that's a very real thing, because, again, that was in his behavior to an extent. But even so, again, the man was finding Jesus a little at a time. And when a person does that, they're going to find the truth, because Jesus is going to speak to them with the truth, and then they're going to say what that truth is. And he was doing that. He was starting to do it even more. But when you're again, I'm on a loop now, but when you're as controlled as he was from the start, unfortunately, the end is a rather predictable one. You can even rather go back to 2020. And as we all know, that was an interesting time for the entire world, because the battle lines were drawn. You could see exactly where people were standing, and what people were willing to do, and what they were willing to tolerate, and what they were going to talk about and not talk about. The likes of Charlie Kirk, again, and the people in those positions, by and large, were very silent on the shot rollout and the mask wearing and a number of other things. Again, Charlie Kirk wore a mask. I remember very specifically in Scottsdale, Arizona, which I believe is where he lived, or in that general area. He was in the parking lot of a school board meeting, and it was a very famous school board meeting because the school board had locked the parents out of the meeting. It was supposed to be a scheduled public meeting. There were police there, a lot of them, and then the parents slowly started to be trespassed because they wouldn't go home. But they were allowed in by, of course, state law and federal law, because it's an open meeting. But again, the doors were locked and they weren't allowed in. And Charlie was in the back, back of the parking lot. He was kind of standing by himself. He wasn't doing a whole lot, but he had a mask in his hands. So again, he was a mask wearer, but he very sheepishly kind of, when a camera came up to him, they're like, "Hey, Charlie Kirk's here." And he kind of leans forward and he goes, "Hey, everybody, like, what's going on?" I mean, he was nervous. Back then, he was nervous about mixing it up and getting involved and whatever else. But again, he was controlled. Don't speak about the COVID lie. Wear the mask. Do your part. I don't know if he took the shots or not. There's no way that I'd know that, unless, of course, he openly tweeted about it. But I don't know if he did. He may have asked questions about it. He may have even criticized the COVID lie. I hope he did. I didn't hear him do it a lot. I didn't hear Ben Shapiro do it either. But that, again, is another, I'm only bringing it up because that's another litmus test for where people stand on particular issues, is what do they say in very critical moments in time when you want to hear what the truth is? Do they stay silent? Do they toe the line? Do they just, again, do what they're told? Or do they, again, dig deeper? And then openly say, you know what, I'm not going to be held back. I'm going to start saying this because this is what's on my mind, this is what's on my heart, and this is exactly what's going on. Again, very quickly, let me revisit the deception here. This is all over the General on Telegram. It's on Disclosed TV as well. Again, this is making the rounds like it's true, but it's completely not plausible. It says a leaked ATF document claims a weapon found near the site of Charlie Kirk's killing had cartridges engraved with transgender and Antifa phrases and symbols. And it's a screenshot that says "Louder with Crowder" on it. And there's apparently, again, a screenshot of somebody's computer from the ATF, allegedly, or anybody. And it just says, again, basically the entire scenario. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route to travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds in the top-fed magazine. All cartridges have ingrained wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted. The ATF SCL is working. Leads generated by the trace, the firearm and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions upon completion and blah, 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 blah. And that's just policy and procedure. Again, it's a different storyline. It's a different distraction. It's irrelevant, frankly. But the most relevant parts are the parts, again, that have to do with what wasn't being discussed after this happened. Again, everybody was overcome with grief, by and large, except for, of course, the godless monsters that exist all around us. But people should have been asking, again, how is it that a person on a rooftop can get away? That's next to impossible. 6 police officers are not. Surround the building, call in everybody. Don't let anybody leave. Get up on the roof as fast as possible. Send a drone up there if you can. All these kids got drones these days, do they not? Send a drone up there. Get vigilant. Start looking around. Follow the individual with the drone if you have to. And then catch the person. But that didn't happen. And we're certainly not being told anything. Again, people analyze these situations too, and even so, you start to see some of the worst police work you've ever seen in your entire life. Like I read in that post earlier. Again, who was asking Charlie the question? Get their cell phone. Were they in on it? Was it directly coordinated to, again, be shot the very moment that he's answering a question about guns? It's not a coincidence. I mean, they script these things out, but what the police don't do is detain people and start asking questions. They don't go through documentation. They're certainly not going to do it with something this large because they don't even do it at the local level. I hate to tie it in, but I mean, it's some relevance here when it comes to, again, law enforcement and actually investigating things. The elementary school principal, former, not fired yet, still on paid administrative leave, Jason Mers, that entire investigation was an absolute sham. How many people from the building did you interview? They should have reached out to every single parent who sent their children to that building and said, you need to talk with your children about any interaction they've ever had with Jason Mers. And if your child is willing to discuss something with us that has to do with Jason Mers that they think is suspicious or not healthy or what have you, please bring them by and we can talk and we can schedule a time to meet and discuss on the record what they think. That never happened. When it comes to a principal who's been accused, again, of such a crime, of molesting a child in a bathroom stall, don't you think you would interview every single employee? Or do you, again, hide behind unions in fear and then not do the right thing? And then, whoops, the investigation just stops. Isn't that interesting? Very recently, regarding the business of Joseph Hall, for example, this guy who's, again, about to be terminated today. His contract is going to be officially terminated today in September 11th, in the September 11th Talawanda School District Board meeting, is again that the entire school district allowed him to falsify an application, which again is a first-degree misdemeanor. When you falsify a legal document, it's against the law. So I, of course, obtained all of this documentation, and I took it to the police to, again, fill out a police report for a first-degree misdemeanor because the investigator, rather, in Brookville, Ohio, wanted this individual off of the streets. They wanted to get him on a probation violation, and if he falsified a document, then he would need to know that so that he can file the probation violation. I talked with a guy over the phone myself. He said, again, file a police report with the Oxford Police Department because that's where the crime occurred. And then I'll obtain the report from them, and then we'll move on. And that's not what happened, though. The Oxford Police Department contacted the school district and said, I'm in possession of this information. You need to conduct your own investigation. So again, a local police department is asking a school district who hired a guy who wanted to have sex with minors to look into whether or not he falsified his application when they already know that he falsified his application. But they don't seem to know as a school district that that's a crime and that they have to file a police report when they're in possession of evidence and knowing of a crime. So I don't trust the school district to do that. They should, because they're supposed to. They're mandated reporters. But again, this is the problem. It's corrupt through and through. From the, again, smallest local school all the way up to the federal government, 3-letter agencies, foreign countries, the whole thing. And until there's some kind of a cleansing and some kind of a conflict, then the Charlie Kirks of the world are going to continue to meet the same fate, which is an unfortunate one. And it's a calculated one. And it's one where, again, people will get away with it. People online were even criticizing the individuals, again, who run a security detail. And were they making hand gestures? And were they, tipping off the shooter that now would be a great time to shoot him? You would have to detain those people. His entire security team would have to be detained, questioned, all of it. But again, if they're all Masons and they're all in on it, and they all back each other's play no matter what because everybody's got a mortgage payment and everybody's afraid to not be able to pay a bill, then you got everybody right where you want them. It's a sad state of affairs, ladies and gentlemen, but it's World War III. And it's right here. Again, the deception with Charlie Kirk's assassination and all of the storylines around it are never ending. You have people, again, posting pictures of guns online, swearing to God that this is the gun, that's the gun. Look over here, look at this. Promise me I'm telling the truth. It's just pictures on the internet. That's not evidence. That's hearsay, and hearsay isn't admissible in a court of law. It's just a bad game of telephone. But again, when individuals are around an event like this, the number of individuals who need to be interviewed and need to be detained is mind-blowing. Like I said a second ago, his entire security detail, they should all be arrested and detained. All of their communications should be gone through. But that's not going to happen. Again, a lot of other things are happening too in the world. For example, you have the fall of Nepal. This is an interesting situation that continues to get more interesting. Politicians being drug around in the public, beaten with sticks publicly, some being murdered. Potentially they're taking their country back from tyranny. That's interesting. Barron Trump. Barron Trump is returning to the White House, allegedly, to live in the White House. Is that a security move? Probably. It probably is. All of the medical disclosures that are taking place right now. It's overwhelming. The evidence is everywhere. Don't put needles in your body ever again, or at all. Before birth, during birth, after birth, all the way until you expire. Don't do it. Among endless other medical things that apparently have existed this entire time, of course, that are poisonous to endless people. There was a school shooting in Colorado, allegedly. Shooter shot one other person, critical condition, shot another person, mildly injured. Somebody else was injured running away, shooter shot himself, and it just happened to be a school called Evergreen. That's interesting. Evergreen has some code language associated with it. There's two Q posts with the term evergreen in it where it says define evergreen. Not saying I know what it means. I understand evergreen, the shipping container, and the shipping company that had something to do with, again, transferring children or guns or weapons or something that was either owned by the Rothschilds or Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation or something along those lines. But again, it's interesting nonetheless. And then, of course, the standard conversations about gun grabs. Is this another gun grab? Is this designed to, again, scare people from owning guns? Or is it quite the opposite? Are more people going to buy guns now? Typically, after something like this, more people buy guns. Is this going to keep people off of college campuses? Keep them from speaking freely on college campuses? Maybe. And of course, like moths to the flame, you have endless school teachers, like I said earlier, college administrators, medical doctors, nurses, people in all kinds of professions making all kinds of videos, voicing their opinions, and again, their complete lack of any humanity whatsoever with something like this, not recognizing that they themselves are the ones that call for violence all of the time. And then, of course, when they do this, some of these people get fired and sometimes they don't. Let me give you a local case. You're familiar with this crazy woman. She's not even a woman. I mean, she's a monster. That again, calling her a woman is a disservice to women. It's insulting to women. The case of Danielle Mann. Danielle Mann, of course, very famously last November, losing her mind on TikTok in both the seat of her car and inside of her own classroom after Donald Trump won, telling everybody again that all the girls need to get their tubes tied because all MAGA boys are rapists and you need to stay away from them. Again, the woman is a psychopath. They make padded rooms for people like this, and we have to make padded rooms great again. But some other local nitwit by the name of Amy Elaine, if I'm saying that right, put out some quotations regarding Charlie Kirk and gun control. A Melissa Wild responded on Facebook and said, "Be the martyr you wish to see in the world, I guess. I'm sad for his kids." And then Danielle Mann responded to the first post and said, "Tots and pear. TOTS, and then 2 pear emojis. I had to look that up. All you have to do is take the picture, toss it into an AI system, and it'll tell you exactly what it means. It's a sarcastic and snide way of saying thoughts and prayers. Tots and pairs. Because she's retarded. And she's insulting. And she's a monster. Another person responded, a Kelly Mapes, and said, "I really hope you don't think his death, they meant to say, is okay." And then the Amy Elaine responded with some post. Again, I put that out on Gab and on X so that people could see it, but again, these people are all over the place. And even again, after comments like that, people will send their children back to these school environments around these same kinds of people on a day in and day out basis. I don't know what more evidence people need to stay away. I'll end with this. I think that moments like this, and again, certainly among those of us who have a pretty firm grasp of real history and are awake to the way that the world actually works, we fully can see things tipping in a particular direction that is not going to benefit our enemy. And again, like a caged animal, when they're backed into a corner, they're going to lash out and they're going to do all of the things that they do. But this is taking people further to the political right, which is not a bad thing, because there's still plenty of tolerance and there's still plenty of logic and reasoning on the far right. But if it takes them, again, away from the Fox News watching right and sort of the conservative right and the Con Inc. right, if it takes them away from that and pushes them into their own category, of being constitutional nationalists who love the Constitution, want the Constitution to play out exactly the way that it was written, and then nationalistic in that they love their country. If it pulls more people into that so-called category, which is certainly further right than what you see on TV and what you hear on the radio, then that's a good thing. Because all that that's doing then in pulling people in that direction, it's even taking individuals on the left and pulling them more toward the right. The left is running out. They're running out of people. They're running out of options. The voter rolls are being cleaned out. The illegal aliens are leaving and being deported. These people are screaming and shouting because, again, their cities are about to be, again, completely overrun with National Guard and endless other individuals, which it should be. But these people are also, again, exposing themselves for who they are. Your enemy is out in the open. We can all see who they are. So act accordingly. But protect yourself. Keep your heads on a swivel. Carry a gun legally. Don't go places, again, where you're out in the open, so to speak, or again, you feel like you're potentially in some kind of danger. I don't recommend giving speeches on college campuses. They're Marxist, communist, Zionistic playgrounds. I've been over that a million times before. But yeah, you're not going to see me on a stage anyplace. I'm not interested in it. There are more productive ways to educate ourselves and educate others. And there's other ways of doing it. But we shouldn't stop ourselves from doing it either. Just because, again, an individual is assassinated because of what they were uncovering and what they were doing doesn't mean that you stop. Keep telling the truth, because it's the only thing in this world that matters. There are other things, of course, but you get what I'm saying. And yeah, say a prayer for the departed, no doubt, and their family, because a lot of people are in pain. And they're going to continue to be for the rest of their lives. Again, I fully understand, too, that people are saying that the shooting is fake. They're saying, hey, look at this, this doesn't seem right. There's this, there's that, there's these anomalies. Well, there's also a lot of recordings, and there's a lot of manipulation that can take place with recordings. And there's bad recordings, and there's good recordings, and there's a lot of other stuff. I'm pretty certain this happened. I have no doubt about that. But just use your discernment, because again, all war is deception, and deception is in all war. That's always been the case, and it will continue to be, because again, we are at war. That's why I make the war videos too. That's why it's called This is War, because we've been in one this whole time. And we are still in it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to keep moving forward. Thank you for listening as always. Feel free again and check out the This is War videos. I'm going to put together a little 9/11 video as well with some updated footage and memes and other things that I have as well. You can feel free and check that out if you're interested. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.